The night sky was full of strange lights. Red stars burned above, and a thin silver moon floated like a broken coin. The land below was silent, except for the sound of heavy boots on the hard ground. He walked behind her, keeping his eyes sharp. He was human, a soldier brought from a faraway world. She was not human, her skin faint blue, her eyes shining like glass. She wore a long, dark cloak, the mark of her people's royal line. She turned to him, her voice calm but strong. "You will guard me," she said, "until the mission is complete. You will not leave my side." He gave a short nod. For him, duty was simple. Orders were meant to be followed no matter the cost. But inside he felt something heavier. This command was different. This time he felt danger waiting in the shadows. They entered the ruined city. Tall towers leaned like broken teeth. The air smelled of dust and smoke. Strange sounds echoed in the distance. He tightened his grip on the weapon in his hand. Every sound felt like a warning. Every shadow felt alive. She walked ahead, calm and sure. She did not fear the ruins. She trusted her people. She trusted her guard. But she did not know how far he was ready to go. She did not know what it meant for a human to guard someone. For him, it was not just an order. It was a vow. He watched the rooftops, he listened to the wind. He remembered the last battle he had fought. He had seen soldiers fall because they relaxed, because they thought the night was safe. But no night was ever safe. Not on this world. Not with enemies waiting. She slowed her steps and looked at him again. "You are silent," she said. "Do you fear this place?" He shook his head. "Fear keeps me awake," he answered. "Fear is good." Her lips curved into a faint smile. "You humans are strange," she said. "You guard even with fear in your heart." He did not answer, because he knew fear was not weakness. Fear was a weapon. Fear kept him alive. And tonight he needed every edge he could get. The silence of the ruins grew heavier. A stone fell somewhere, rolling across the broken street. He raised his weapon at once, his eyes scanning the dark. But nothing moved. Only shadows. Only silence. Still, his heart beat faster. He knew they were not alone. He felt the weight of eyes watching them, hunting them, waiting for the right moment. She did not notice. Or maybe she chose to ignore it. Her steps were steady, her cloak brushing against the ground. She believed her order was simple. She believed he was just a guard, but he already knew. He was more than that. He thought of home, of the faces of his old squad, of the men who had trusted him, of the friends who had fallen. He had sworn never to fail again, not while he still breathed. Now that vow burned inside him. He would guard her with all his strength, even if it broke him, even if it killed him. The night grew colder, the ruins darker, and the silence deeper. It was the kind of silence that comes before a storm, the kind of silence that waits before death. He felt it. He knew the enemy was close, maybe above, maybe behind, but somewhere near. He could not see them yet, but he could feel them like knives of ice at the back of his neck. She looked at him once more, her eyes curious. "You look as if you expect death," she said. "Do you think they will come for me tonight?" He did not hesitate. "Yes," he said. "They will come." Her smile faded. She stopped walking. For the first time, doubt touched her face. "You speak with such certainty," she whispered. "Why are you so sure?" He stepped closer, standing like a wall between her and the shadows. "Because I have seen eyes like theirs before," he said. "And I know when hunters are near." The wind rose, carrying the sound of broken metal. A low growl echoed from the distance. Her hand moved to her cloak, ready to draw her weapon, but he raised a hand. "Stay behind me," he ordered. His voice was steady, but inside his blood ran cold. She had commanded him to guard her, and he had accepted. But now he understood the truth. This was not a simple command. This was a line he could not step back from, because to guard her meant to face death. And he was ready to pay that price. Far above, a shadow shifted across the roof. A pair of glowing eyes opened in the dark, watching, waiting. And the night held its breath. The order had been given, the vow had been made, the hunt was about to begin. The ruins slept under the broken sky, yet he did not. He walked a step behind her, his weapon close, his eyes scanning every shadow. The city was too quiet, and quiet places always held danger. Every wall seemed to whisper. Every street corner felt alive. He knew something was near, something watching. But silence hid it well. She moved like the silence belonged to her. Her cloak dragged softly against the stones, her head held high as if no fear could touch her, but he knew better. Fear was not gone. Fear was only waiting. The human's boots pressed against broken glass and sand. Each sound was sharp in the empty night. He paused, listening. There it was again. A faint scrape, too soft for her to notice, but not too soft for him. He lifted his hand slightly, a silent signal for her to slow down. She looked back, frowning, but said nothing. She obeyed, and that was enough. They moved into a narrow street. The walls leaned close, blocking the moonlight. The smell of rust and smoke was heavy here. He hated streets like this, streets that trapped you, streets where enemies could hide above or behind, yet they had no other way. His eyes touched every roof, every shadowed window, his ears caught every drip of water, every shift of stone. The silence was no comfort. The silence was a warning. She whispered, "Why do you look at the dark as if it speaks to you?" He answered, without turning, "Because it does. The dark speaks to those who have listened long enough." She tilted her head, curious. "And what does it say now?" He stopped, eyes still searching. "It says we are not alone." The words froze the air between them. She said nothing more, and he returned to his watch. They reached an open square where the ruins widened. A fountain stood in the center. Broken and dry statues leaned on their sides, half buried in sand. The wind whistled through the cracks like a whispering ghost. He motioned for her to wait near the fountain. He walked slowly around it, circling, his steps measured, his weapon steady. He felt the silence grow heavier, as if the ruins themselves held their breath. Then, a flicker on the far roof. Just, for a second, a figure too tall, too thin to be human, eyes glowing faint green, gone before she saw. But he had seen enough. He returned to her side, his jaw set hard. "They are here," he whispered. Her eyes widened slightly. "You saw them?" "Yes," he said. "And they saw us." Her hand brushed the hilt of her blade beneath her cloak, but he shook his head. "Not yet," he said. "Let them wait. Let them think we do not know. We use their silence against them." So they walked again, slower now. He was the shadow behind her, the silent wall that nothing could pass. Every step was a hunt, every breath a warning. The city was a cage, and inside it, they were the prey, yet he did not fear. Fear was already. His companion, instead, he felt focus, the kind of sharpness that only came when death was close. They reached another narrow street. The air was colder here, the ground damp, slippery with moss. She whispered again. "Why do you not speak, human?" he answered, his eyes never leaving the dark. "Because silence is my weapon too." She gave a small smile, though her voice carried a touch of unease. "You humans truly are strange." Above them, something shifted. A stone rolled down a roof. Bouncing off the ground with a sharp crack, she gasped softly, reaching for her blade. But he stepped in front of her, raising his weapon. Nothing moved. The silence returned, yet he knew they were testing him, testing his watch, testing his patience. He kept his stance, steady as stone. If they thought he would break, they were wrong. He was human, and humans did not break so easily. The night stretched long. Hours passed in silence and watchfulness. His body ached, but his mind stayed sharp. Every whisper of wind, every creak of stone, he marked it. His eyes grew used to the flicker of shadows. His ears caught the smallest sounds, and slowly he began to map their hunters in the dark. One above the north wall, one moving along the rooftops east, another shadow shifting close behind them. He counted them in silence. He learned their pattern. He waited. She leaned close, her voice a whisper. "Why do they not strike?" He answered, "Because they wait for weakness, and they will not find it." His hand brushed the scar across his arm. He remembered battles past. He remembered nights when silence turned to screams. He remembered men who failed to listen. He would not be one of them. Not tonight. Not while she breathed. The moon dipped low. The ruins grew darker. Still they walked. Still he watched. The hunters in the shadows followed, silent as ghosts. But he was ready. He was always ready, and as the night stretched thin, he knew one truth. The command she had given him was simple: guard her. But the vow he carried inside was heavier. Protect her, no matter the cost, even if it meant his silence was the last sound he ever gave. And so the watch continued. Silent, endless, each breath a promise, each step a shield. The hunters waited. But so did he, and in the cold ruins, the game of shadows had only just begun. The night had stretched long. The ruins breathed silence, broken only by the faint sound of their steps. He had kept his watch, eyes sharp, senses burning. But silence never lasted forever. Silence always broke. They crossed into a wide courtyard. The ground cracked, the stones split by roots that crawled like veins. Broken statues leaned against fallen walls, their faces eaten away by time. The air felt heavy here, thick with dust and memory and danger. He slowed, his eyes touched every shadow, every broken arch. He felt the hunters closer now. Their silence had grown bold. They thought the human's eyes could not see, but his eyes saw. His ears heard, and his blood told him the storm was about to break. She walked forward without pause. Her cloak swayed in the wind, her head held high, trust resting on his shoulders, trust heavy as iron. She did not know how close death truly stood, but he did. The first sound was faint, a hiss high and thin, like air escaping from a cracked pipe. He raised his weapon at once. "Stop," he whispered. She froze, her hand drifting to her blade. The hiss grew louder. And then the dark moved. From the rooftops above, shadows leaped, long bodies, bent arms, claws sharp as knives, eyes glowing faint green in the night. The hunters revealed themselves at last. 3 fell fast, their bodies, cutting through the air like arrows. He pushed her back, his body stepping into the path of death. The first struck, a claw sweeping toward his chest. He turned, weapon flashing, steel met flesh, a spray of dark blood marked the stones. The creature screeched, stumbling, but 2 more landed hard behind it. The ground shook, the silence shattered. The hunt had begun. She drew her blade, its edge glowing faint silver. But before she could step forward, he barked, "Stay behind me." His voice carried no fear, only command. And though she was of royal blood, she obeyed. The second creature lunged, jaws opening wide. He rolled aside, the teeth snapping where his neck had been. He rose fast, blade flashing upward. The strike caught its shoulder. The creature screamed, twisting, but did not fall. Its claws swiped, catching his arm. Blood spilled warm across his skin. He gritted his teeth, refusing to fall. The third came from the side, its speed blinding. He barely raised his weapon in time. The force drove him back, stones cracking under. His boots, but he held. He would not break. Not here, not now. She watched. Her breath caught. For the first time, she saw what his silence had meant. It was not coldness. It was preparation. Every moment of watch, every step in shadow, had been. For this, he fought not like a guard, but like a shield given life. The wounded creature snarled, joining the fight again, 3 against 1, their claws flashing, their eyes burning. They circled, hunting as a pack, but the human did not yield. His blade turned, his body moved. Every strike, every block, carved. From survival, pain burned in his arm, but his grip never loosened. His breath came hard, but his eyes stayed clear. The first creature fell. His blade struck true, driving deep into its chest. It collapsed with a cry, the ground shaking under its weight. But the others pressed harder, fury in their screeches. Hunger in their eyes, he staggered as another claw raked across his side. Warm blood spread across his uniform, but he did not stop. His vow burned hotter than pain. Guard her. Guard her until the last breath. She wanted to step in, her blade ready, but his voice cut through the chaos. Stay back, he growled. Her heart pounded. Why would he fight alone? Why risk everything when she carried her own blade? But then she saw his eyes. There was no question in them, only promise, and she understood. This was not pride. This was not glory. This was duty. He turned, slashing low. The second creature fell back with a cry. The third pounced, jaws wide. He braced, driving his blade upward. Steel met throat. The creature fell, choking on its own blood. Only one remained, limping, hissing. It looked at him, at her. Then it fled into the night, shadows swallowing its shape. The courtyard fell still again. Only his ragged breath filled the silence. Blood ran down his arm, his side. He stood swaying, but still between her and danger. Always between, always the shield. She stepped closer, her eyes wide. You bleed for me, she whispered. You fight as if my life is worth more than yours. He looked at her, his face pale but his eyes steady. I was ordered to guard you, he said, but I do not guard with half my strength. I guard with all of me. Even if it kills me. The wind blew cold through the ruins. The broken fountain groaned. The dead creatures lay scattered, their blood dark against the stone. She stared at him, and for the first time, she felt the weight of her own command. She had thought his duty was simple, but now she knew. Every order carried a cost, and he was ready to pay it with his life. The silence returned, but it was no longer empty. It was heavy, heavy with the truth that more enemies would come, heavy with the knowledge that one human's vow had already changed everything, and in the stillness she whispered, this was only the first attack. The ruins were not safe anymore. Blood stained the stones. Broken bodies of the hunters lay where they fell, but he knew more would come. They always came in waves. The first attack was never the last. He checked his wounds in silence. His arm burned, his side throbbed, but his eyes never softened. Pain was only another shadow, and shadows could not break him. She stood close, her cloak brushing against his shoulder. Her blade still glowed faint silver. You are hurt, she whispered. You cannot keep walking like this. He shook his head. I can, he said. I must. Her eyes searched his face. She wanted to argue, but his gaze was harder than the stone beneath their feet. He would not stop, not while she lived. They moved forward again, the ruins stretched, endless streets broken, walls leaning, the night swallowing every step. The moon was gone, hidden behind thick clouds, and the silence grew heavier. Every alley looked the same. Every shadow looked hungry, but his eyes never rested. He saw movement where others would see only dark. He heard whispers where others would hear only wind. The journey was not only through ruins, it was through the mouth of danger. The air turned colder as they passed into an old marketplace. Wooden stalls collapsed into heaps. Faded banners hung like skin peeling from bone. The smell of rot drifted through the air. She slowed her steps. This place remembers death, she said softly. He nodded. And it is ready to give more. They crossed the marketplace. His boots crushed glass bottles. Her cloak swept dust into the air. Above them, the roofs creaked. Something shifted far away. Not close enough to strike, but close enough to remind them. The hunt was not over, he thought, of the faces of his fallen brothers. Men who had walked into night and never walked out. He remembered how silence had fooled them, how hope had betrayed them. But he was different now. He carried no hope, only duty, and duty did not break. The path narrowed again. Walls pressed, close, forcing them into a tunnel of stone and shadow. He hated paths like these. Too tight, too blind. But they had no choice. Her people had hidden the safe house beyond this passage. and he had to lead her there. The tunnel breathed cold. Drops of water fell from the ceiling, echoing like footsteps. She whispered, "Do you think they wait for us inside?" He did not look back. "Yes," he said. "They wait everywhere." Her voice trembled faintly. "Then why keep walking?" "Because stopping is death," he answered, "and death will not find you while I still stand." The words silenced her, but they did not silence her heart. For the first time, she wondered if his life was already promised to death, if every step he took was another step closer to sacrifice. The tunnel opened into another square, this one half flooded with black water. The surface shivered under the faint wind. Broken bridges leaned across, half fallen. He tested the stones with his boot. They were slick, dangerous, but there was no other way. She followed carefully. The water below rippled. He froze, eyes sharp. Something moved beneath the surface, too fast, too large. He raised his weapon. "Do not step closer," he warned. The water broke. Something slid. Beneath them, its shape hidden, but its weight shook the broken bridge. Her breath caught. "What is it?" she whispered. "Another hunter," he said, "or something worse." They crossed with care, every step slow, every sound louder than it should have been. The water moved again, but this time, nothing surfaced. It let them pass. For now, on the other side, he paused. His chest heaved, not from fear but from focus. Every sense was stretched thin. The journey was bleeding him, but he did not falter. Not while she stood behind him. She looked at him in the dim light. "You walk like you carry the weight of the whole world," she said. He glanced back, his voice low. "I carry you." The word struck her deeper than any blade, because she realized he meant more than just guarding her steps. He carried her life, her mission, her trust, and he would not set it down. They left the flooded square and entered another stretch of ruins, this one darker than the last. A storm gathered above, thunder growling. Rain began to fall, soft at first, then harder. It washed blood from the stones. It turned dust to mud, and still they walked. Through the rain, he never lowered his guard, his weapon steady, his eyes sharp. The darkness was thick, but his silence was thicker, a silence not of fear, but of promise. And in that silence, she felt safer than she ever had before. The ruins stretched endless, but the safe house was close. He could feel it, not because he saw it, but because the hunters grew restless. The silence broke now and then. A hiss, a scrape, a whisper in the rain. They were gathering again, waiting for another chance. He slowed, his body tense. The night was not done testing them. The journey through darkness was not yet over. And, as thunder split the sky, he whispered to himself, "Let them come." The storm raged above the ruins, thunder cracked like a war drum. Rain fell in sheets, washing away the dust, the blood, and the silence. But not the danger, never the danger. He led her forward, every step heavy but steady. The safe house was close, he could feel it. Yet his senses whispered that safety was only a word, not a truth, not in a place like this. At last, they reached a tall, broken tower. Half of it had collapsed. The rest stood like a jagged tooth against the night sky. A faint light flickered in one of its windows. She raised her head, relief shining in her eyes. "We are here," she whispered. "My people wait inside." He did not answer at once.
He scanned the tower, the broken doors, the shadows that clung to the walls.
His gut twisted. Something was wrong. The hunters had followed them all this way. Why had they not attacked again? Why let them reach this place alive? But she had already stepped forward, her cloak heavy with rain, her voice carrying strength. Again, "They will give us shelter, food, weapons," she said. "They will help us finish the mission." He followed, though his grip on the weapon tightened. The door opened as they neared. A man stepped out, his skin the same faint blue as hers, his armor marked with the royal crest. He bowed low. "My lady," he said, his voice warm. "We feared you had been lost. Come quickly, before more danger finds you." Her face softened with relief. She moved toward him, but the human's eyes did not soften. He studied the man, every motion, every word. Relief was dangerous. Relief opened doors that should stay closed. Inside the tower, torches burned against the damp walls. Several guards stood, waiting, their armor shining in the flicker of fire. They bowed as she entered, their voices low. "We are honored, my lady." She smiled faintly for the first time since the journey began, but the human remained silent. He walked behind her, his steps slow. Every guard's hand was too close to their weapons. Every eye flicked to him with too much weight. He felt the tension in the air, tension sharper than the storm outside. She spoke. "You have done well to hold this place. We will rest here before we move again." One of the guards stepped forward, his smile too wide. "Yes, my lady," he said. "We will see to your safety." The human's jaw tightened. He had heard those words before, too many times. Safety was often the mask of betrayal. They led her deeper into the tower. The air smelled of damp stone and smoke. The torches flickered as wind slipped through broken cracks. She walked with ease now, trust in every step. But his eyes never left the guards. Every move sharpened his suspicion, every smile cut like a blade. At last, they entered a wide chamber. A fire burned in the center. The guards closed the doors behind them. Too quickly, too firm. He turned his head, the sound of the bolt sliding. Into place was soft, but it was the sound of a trap. He raised his weapon at once, his voice low, sharp. "Why lock the doors?" The guards froze for only a heartbeat. Then the false smiles returned. "To keep the hunters out," one said. But his hand never left the hilt of his blade, and his eyes never left hers, not with loyalty, but with hunger. She turned slowly, confusion in her face. "What is this?" she whispered. Her voice carried more pain than fear. "These are my people, my guards." The human stepped in front of her, his weapon already ready. "They are not your guards anymore," he said. "They serve someone else." The leader of the guard stepped forward, his smile twisted. "You are clever, human," he said. "But you cannot stop what is coming." Her breath caught. "You dare betray me," she whispered. "You swore to serve the crown." The man laughed. "The crown is weak, the crown is dying. We serve power now, power that will rise when you fall." The torches shook as the storm outside roared. She stepped back, her eyes wide with pain. The human did not move. He was the wall between her and the traitors. He had seen this before. He had seen friends turn into enemies, and he knew one truth. Betrayal cut deeper than any blade. The guards drew their weapons, steel flashing in the firelight. The leader raised his hand. "Kill the human," he ordered. "Take her alive." The chamber filled with the sound of steel leaving scabbards. She gasped, but the human only raised his weapon higher. He stood tall, though his wounds still bled. He faced them with eyes that burned. If betrayal had come, then betrayal would taste blood before it claimed her. The storm thundered outside. The fire roared inside, and the human whispered to himself, "Let them come." The chamber burned with firelight. Steel glimmered in every hand. The storm outside shook the tower walls. But inside, it was betrayal that thundered louder than the rain. He stood before her, body weak but spirit unbroken. Blood dripped from his wounds, his breath heavy, yet his grip on the weapon was firm, his eyes sharp. He was a wall of flesh and iron, a shield made human. The traitor leader sneered. "You cannot win, human," he said. "You bleed already. You can barely stand." "But we are many, and you are one." He did not answer. Words were wasted on men who had already sold their honor. He only raised his weapon higher, and his silence was louder than any roar. The guards advanced, slow at first, their blades gleaming, their steps heavy. They circled him, trying to break his stance, but he moved with precision. Every step placed, every breath measured. He had fought outnumbered before. He had survived worse than this, and he would not fall while she still stood. The first struck, a blade slicing toward his neck. He ducked low, his weapon flashing upward. Steel met flesh. A cry echoed in the chamber as the guard fell. The fire snapped as blood struck the stones. Two more came at once, one from the left, one from the right. He spun, blocking, parrying, pain shot through his side where claws had torn him earlier, but he did not falter. He struck hard, driving one back with a deep cut across the arm, then slammed his shoulder into the other, knocking him down. The leader watched with narrowed eyes. "You fight like a beast," he spat. "But beasts break and you will break too." The human's chest rose and fell. His vision blurred for a moment, but his will held firm. He planted his feet, his voice calm. "Then try to break me." The next wave came, 4 at once, steel clashing, sparks flying. He blocked, twisted, cut. Every strike cost him strength. Every blow took more blood, but every guard who came too close met his blade. The floor grew slick with red, the air thick with the stink of iron and smoke. Behind him she stood frozen, her eyes wide. She had never seen loyalty like this. She had never seen one fight for another's life as if it were his own. Her hand trembled on her blade, but his command still rang in her ears. "Stay behind me," and she obeyed, because she now understood. He was not fighting only for her crown, he was fighting for his vow, for the promise in his blood. Another guard lunged. His blade scraped across the human's shoulder. Pain flared, but he answered with a strike so fierce it dropped the man instantly. The others hesitated, fear breaking through their betrayal. They had expected an easy kill, but they faced a storm wrapped in human flesh, and storms did not kneel. The leader roared in anger, stepping forward at last, his blade larger, heavier, his strikes sharp with rage. The human met him, steel against steel. The clash echoed like thunder through the chamber. Each strike shook his arms, each block tore at his wounds, but he held. He pushed back. He fought like the earth itself stood behind him. The leader snarled. "You are only a man," he spat. "You should have fallen long ago." The human's eyes burned. "I am a man," he said, "and that is enough." With a surge of strength, he drove forward. His blade cut through the leader's guard. Steel tore flesh. The leader screamed. Stumbling back, the firelight showed his blood dark and heavy. But before he could strike again, another guard lunged. The blade sank into the human's side. Deep. Brutal. She cried out, her voice breaking the storm of steel. He staggered, blood pouring from the wound. But he did not fall. He turned, killing the guard with a final desperate strike, then planted himself once more between her and the traitors. His body shook, his breath ragged. But his eyes stayed sharp, his voice steady. "You will not touch her." The remaining guards hesitated. They saw death in his stance, not his death, but theirs, and fear chained their feet. The leader, wounded and furious, raised his blade again, but she stepped forward at last, her silver blade flashing. "You betrayed your oath," she said, her voice cut like steel. "You will not live to see the reward of it." Together they struck, human and alien, loyalty and crown. Steel met steel, fire roared, and betrayal broke under their blades. When it was over, the chamber lay silent again. Bodies scattered, torches flickering, the storm outside began to fade. But inside, another storm still raged. He dropped to one knee, blood pooling around him, his weapon slipping from his hand, yet his body still angled toward her, still guarding, even in collapse. She knelt beside him, her eyes wide with pain. "You gave everything," she whispered. "You bled for me until nothing was left." He forced a weak smile. "My command was to guard you," he said, "and I obeyed." His breath came shallow. The firelight flickered across his pale face. She held his hand, her heart pounding. For the first time, she feared not the hunters, not the traitors, but the loss of the one who had chosen her life above his own. The safe house was won, but the price had been written in blood, and the night was not done collecting its due. The fire in the chamber burned low, The storm outside had faded into distant thunder, but the silence that filled the tower was heavier than either. Bodies of the traitors lay across the stone floor, their blood mixing with the rain that leaked through the cracks. And in the center of it all he knelt, a man broken by wounds, yet still unbroken in spirit. She held his hand, her cloak dark with blood and rain. Her eyes searched his pale face. "Stay with me," she whispered. "Do not leave me now." His lips curved into the faintest smile. "I am still here," he said, his voice weak. "I have not failed you yet." Her throat tightened. "You did more than guard me," she said. "You gave me every breath, every drop of blood. You gave me your life when I only asked for your duty." He coughed, blood staining his lips. "But it was my choice," he whispered. "You gave the command, but I gave the vow. I chose to stand, even when it meant falling." The flames crackled, shadows dancing on the ruined walls. For the first time she looked at him not as a soldier, not as a guard, but as a man who carried the weight of loyalty heavier than crowns. He tried to rise, his hand trembling as he pushed against the stone, but his legs buckled. She caught him, holding him close. "You cannot move," she said firmly. "You need rest. You need healing." He shook his head slowly. "Rest can wait," he whispered. "Danger cannot. They will come again, hunters, traitors, shadows. They always come again." Her eyes filled with tears. "You think only of me, even now," she said softly. "You bleed, yet you still shield?" He closed his eyes for a moment, then opened them, the fire of his spirit still burning. "That is the price of loyalty," he said. "It does not stop when the body breaks. It only stops when the heart stops beating." She bowed her head, her hand gripping his tightly. "You were ordered to guard me," she whispered, "but you gave me more than I deserved." Footsteps echoed suddenly. Both their heads turned. Figures appeared in the doorway, more of her loyal soldiers, not traitors this time, but true servants of the crown. Their armor bore fresh scars, proof they had fought their own battles through the night. "My lady," one said, kneeling, "we came as soon as we could. We feared you lost." Her voice shook as she answered. "I was not lost," she said. "I was guarded, at a price I can never repay." They looked at the human, still, kneeling, still bleeding. Respect filled their eyes, for they saw not just a soldier but a legend carved in flesh and blood. They lifted him carefully. He groaned but did not cry out. She walked beside him, never letting go of his hand. They carried him to the upper chambers of the tower, laid him upon a bed of rough cloth, and lit fresh torches to drive away the shadows. She stayed at his side, her eyes never leaving him. The soldiers asked what they should do. She gave them orders, strong and clear. But when her voice softened, again it was only for him. "Live," she whispered. "Live, not for me, but for yourself." His breathing slowed, his eyelids heavy, but still he whispered back, "I will live if duty allows. For I am not done guarding you yet." She pressed his hand to her chest. "No," she said firmly, "you have done enough. You gave me your life, but I will not let it end here. You will live, and you will see that your vow changed more than you know." He looked at her, his vision blurring. "What do you mean?" he asked faintly. She leaned close, her voice steady. "I thought strength was crowns and armies," she said. "I thought loyalty was commands and oaths. But you showed me it is more. You showed me that true strength is sacrifice, and true loyalty is choice. You were ordered to guard me, but you chose to give me your heart." His lips curved again, weak but real. "Then it was worth it," he whispered. "Every wound, every breath worth it." The night outside began to lighten, the first touch of dawn breaking the black sky. Golden light spilled into the tower, falling across his face. For a moment it seemed the storm of death had passed. For a moment he looked at peace. She sat beside him, her voice low. They will tell this story, she said, of the human who stood against shadows, against betrayal, against death itself. They will remember you as more than a guard. They will remember you as the shield who chose to stand. His eyes closed, his breathing soft, but the faintest whisper left his lips. I need no story, he said. I only need to know you were safe. And then silence returned. Not the silence of death, but the silence of rest, the silence of a vow fulfilled. She held his hand, watching the dawn. Her voice was soft but strong. You were ordered to guard me, she whispered, but you gave me everything. And I will never forget the price of your loyalty. The sun rose higher. The night ended, but his name, his sacrifice, his choice would live far longer than crowns or storms. For some vows are written not on paper, but in blood, and in hearts that will never forget.